All right. Hi. I'm Meredith. Thank you so much for stopping by to watch this video. I just wanted to come talk about the astrology for the week of the 7th through the 13th, and then maybe touch on the 14th a little bit because how could I not? And I'm planning on, maybe trying to make a little bit more video content. And so I'll probably do a video as well for the new moon solar eclipse, but I will talk about it a little bit right now and kind of like get into it. So we start off the week on Monday, June 7th. Yeah, June 7th, because today is the 6th and it's Sunday. Okay, so we start off the week with a dark moon in Taurus. So, you know, usually the moon loves to be in the sign of Taurus. It feels good. It feels like it can, stabilize and really ground and, savor all of those really good, juicy adjectives. But so this dark moon, so every time that there's like a new moon, especially if it's a new moon solar eclipse, the phase before the new moon is called a dark moon. It's called a balsamic phase. And this balsamic phase usually brings up like the not so nice, shadowy variations or aspects of, the sign that the dark moon is in. So with the moon in the sign of Taurus, starting out the week before we have this eclipse on Thursday in Gemini, the dark moon in Taurus, could bring up like scarcity, fears around security, fear of the unknown. There's something about Taurus that is very resistant to change and it's very resistant to new ways of doing things. So we could feel some of that. We could feel like the tendency to like grasp onto things and like, that kind of grasping like never works. Like it just doesn't. So for all fixed signs out there, myself included, we can sometimes be a little bit resistant to change. And I think that this week, as well as the week after, will likely challenge that some. The moon is going to conjoin Uranus in Taurus as well, so it's the degree of uncertainty is larger than we faced in our lives, and that's okay to acknowledge. That's something, to sit with and to how do you reckon with uncertainty? How do you process that? Everybody is different. And, I think that some people just snap right into like what they've always known, and some people don't, and that's okay. But I think with the square to Saturn too, this is where we can be like overextended, over obligated to certain things, kind of feeling like tired or like, and this is just a very passing transit of the moon, but it is also highlighting the Saturn Uranus square, which is going to come exact on June 14th. And this is like the primary aspect that we're working with this year. And the biggest question I think that it's asking is like, when are you going to change? What are you going to change? How do you respond to pressure and to compression? How do you respond to unknown variables that kind of show up out of nowhere? And we can really find our strength during some of those moments. I mean, I think that everybody responds differently to pressure, to fire, not that this has anything to do with fire astrologically, but we are kind of like under pressure, and there's some level of being able to, really like form into something beautiful under that pressure. I think that potential definitely exists. And, we can all see it, like the area in our lives that this Saturn Uranus square is highlighting. Like we can see that like somewhere in our lives, there has to be some kind of change made. The way that we're going about certain things, or the way that we define certain parameters, or And it's different for everybody. Like for some people, they're experiencing this change in very outer parts of life. Some people are experiencing it very internally. And, it's all about resilience and adaptability and restructuring, transforming, and on the other hand, mutating. There's a lot with that. So, so I would say like practically, it's good. And I probably after this video will cease to say things like this. I think that people have probably heard it enough from me, but like making sure with Uranus and Taurus that like you're like watching like what's happening with like, things like the monetary system, the food supply. These are just things that we have always kind of known. So we've always known them to be there as we've known them, right? And I think that, maybe there's like somebody watching this right now who wants to really take their food sovereignty back and begin to, stock up on heirloom seeds and soil and like, plant more vegetable. I'm just, throwing out these hypothetical situations. But the drill is that like you really want to be aware and like to watch, not so much that it costs you your inner peace, but I think that a degree of preparation with this Saturn Uranus square that's exact on June 14th is healthy and necessary. It's not that you have to buy into any fear, but I mean, that's one way I think that you can, release fear. Once you're prepared, there's nothing really to fear. And spiritual preparation is also, for times like this, for change, for transition. And that brings me back to like sort of this like transition of the moon from Taurus to Gemini, because Gemini is all about like our own microcosm and our own environment and like what are we doing like in our personal lives, like on a daily basis to either add or take away from not only our own, cultivation and development, but also the whole. The bigger picture can be represented right now by like the South Node in Sagittarius, offering us the opportunity to really, some of us can see the bigger picture or like where some things are going or are headed, right? But, I think that like it's all about kind of like making the most of now and like taking the steps that you can in the now to avoid, anxiety or like, but yeah, so this this new moon solar eclipse in Gemini happens at the 19th degree on Thursday. And let's see, actually, does it happen on Thursday or does it happen? Yeah, it happens on Thursday. I just wanted to make sure that Thursday was the 10th. So this new moon solar eclipse in Gemini at the 19th degree of Gemini is going to be interesting. Gemini has to do with communication, it has to do with expression, and of course, our microcosm. So, really good to not lose sight of, our own individual thread in the quilt. When we see the quilt, it's good to look for our own individual thread and like what is our story through this and like what steps have we taken to bring us to now. What steps can we take moving forward? Solar eclipses carry with them the energy of new beginnings. There's something that was released on the 26th with the new moon, or the full moon in Sagittarius, that eclipse. And now there's something that is being created or being brought in. And, this has to do with our own individual subjective truth. It has to do with our perception, our thought, our lens of where, of thought, of mind, and the mental constructs that we have. Gemini has to do with polarity. It has to do with inner gender poles, the masculine and the feminine, and what's out of balance for us. you know. So this Mercury retrograde is going to be really closely conjunct this new moon solar eclipse in Gemini. This is lovely because I think this really adds to the like life review energy that I've been feeling really strong ever since Jupiter moved into Pisces. I feel like it's been like a blast from the past and like tons of nostalgia and tons of like catching up with people that I hadn't seen in a long time. So yeah, so there was that, and that, there is this like dance into who we've been in our past iterations. Every second that has passed in our whole lives, that's a version of us, and it's kind of like we're like meeting all of those versions again over the course of the Jupiter and Pisces transit, which really doesn't even get going until next year when Jupiter comes into a conjunction with Neptune and Pisces. Yay! It'll be fun. But speaking of Neptune, so we have Mercury making a conjunction. So there's the inner revelations and the personal, like nodes that connect, the links and, and then there's also this square to Neptune, which is a very like obscure, like I would stay still on Thursday if you can, to experience this new moon solar eclipse. I would stay still. I would stay like present, because I think that you can miss the revelation if you are like so deep into like your own illusion or escapism nonsense, right? Like we just want to stay aware of what we're really looking for, I think, which is, epiphanies and understanding. I think that for me has made this time so much more palatable. So also this week, Mars is going to move into the sign of Leo. Yay! Kind of. So, and I'll explain the caveat because Friday, Thursday, first of all, Mars is going to come to the last degree of Cancer, like Wednesday, Thursday. So that's intense. Like Cancer has to do with like emotions and family and the past. And, it's like we could be having like a serious, emotional release. I think 29-degree, like when a planet comes to the 29th degree, it's more likely, in my opinion, to trigger some kind of event, without going into too much detail on that. Like when Jupiter came to the 29th degree of Aquarius, there was like several different things that happened that kind of gave me pause, and we're like, at the beginning of the year when Mars moved into Taurus, there was kind of like a timeline, like sort of like I think Randy Moggins very aptly calls it like a temporal insertion, which is where like it's basically like time travel, or like, there's some kind of event that's like an anomaly or like a Mandela effect or something along those lines. So yeah, so I think that Mars at the 29th degree of Cancer, with using like, using elements and using logic, we can kind of say like, okay, water problems, especially because Mars is still making that opposition to Pluto, and that's kind of disruptive and abrupt energy. Like I don't know if we've really seen the full effects of that quite yet. I mean, and it's Sunday and we just had that opposition, but yeah, so as Mars comes to this 29th degree, I said in my blog, I said water problems, and then I was kind of like, okay, well, that could be a whole bunch of different things, both macro and micro for many different people, and so we don't need to spend too much time on that, in other words. But this Mars in Cancer transit that has been maybe like causing a little bit of like a wane of our motivation, an increase in our emotions, those types of things, that energy is going to move on when on Friday, Mars moves into the sign of Leo, which is going to really add this like creative, like passionate, like kind of it's very driven. Mars and Leo is very driven, driven to create and driven to connect. The signs of Cancer and Leo are all about the heart and the personal and heart-based human being connection. Really like we can put a few different signs in that category, but that is like the heart is Cancer and Leo. And there's a lot of energy right now with Pluto and Capricorn and Saturn and Aquarius, maybe even, I think Uranus and Taurus wants like unconventional heart-centered connection, but with these Saturn and Pluto transits that are opposing all of this Cancer and Leo, like there is like this energy that's, suppressing, for lack of a better words, the heart space. It's like there's something that is trying to limit or, separate and constrict that connection, which towards the end of June and into July, we'll begin, I think, to see a little bit more of, because Mars and Leo is going to square Saturn and Uranus. And that could be, a pretty ugly T square. And it's basically like the last few days of July or June, and then the first few days of July. I swear, keeping up with time just becomes like so much more challenging ever since the Saturn Pluto and the Jupiter Pluto conjunctions in Capricorn last year. I'm just like, what time is it? Who even knows? Do we even know where we are? I don't know. And then there's a couple of aspects over the weekend that I do find interesting. Venus in Cancer, which is kind of just like bringing some like nice ease and grace through the space that Mars was just in and has been, kind of like agitating or irritating as Mars does. So with Venus in Cancer, this is, going to make a square to Chiron and Aries on Saturday. Venus in Cancer wants to feel good. It wants to feel comfortable and safe and held and supported, right? And, there's not really too much of that going on at the moment. We're all beautifully supported, of course, and, are on a path ideally towards our soul's evolution, despite the culling that is going on right now. But, I think that like the filling, yourself to make yourself feel better, like, it can bring up that kind of energy, because Chiron and Aries is also part of the reason that we are kind of losing our own individual threads in the quilt for the quilt. We live in a collective, we live on a planet with other people, right? So this is like really like drawing or like diverting a lot of attention away from the individual and into the collective, which is fine. And y'all probably have heard me talk about this, how like a healthy collective is made and bred and sustained through healthy individuals. And so I think that this Chiron and Aries square to Venus in Cancer, like we're at odds with ourselves and maybe are using, the things that are in the external to make ourselves feel better, to sort of like plug that hole, when really we could stand to like see why there is a hole in the first place, so that we can maybe know what to do to fill it. So Sunday, the sun is going to make an exact square to Neptune. So not a great day to make promises. Be wary of lying to yourself. I think we all can, we can come upon that, and we can do that for sure. I would say, Yeah, like this has good implications for spirituality and for, you know, like creativity and for vibing, like the vibes are high, but also it's like hard to believe certain people under this kind of influence. Like I think that you know, just things aren't exactly what they seem with squares to Neptune and oppositions to Neptune. And yeah, but I think otherwise, really good for creativity and that kind of thing. And then, you know, there's a really nice wave as well to tap into also on Sunday, which is the Venus in Cancer sextile to Uranus in Taurus, which is like honestly, so sometimes when I ignore my intuition, when I ignore like my soul's pull, or when I ignore when I ignore the fucking clear as day signs that I get, you know, from my highest self and my soul family and maybe groups that work with me, like I, it's so funny. Like there is this phenomena that happens where like you'll sort of, you know, get like a push, like a little push, and then like the push becomes like a shove, and then the shove becomes a slap on the face, and then a kick in the pants, you know, like when you know that you need to be doing something and you're not doing it, like you will be reminded, and like you will like uh, you know, your spirit will let you know when you need to do something, when you don't, like especially when you've done a good amount of healing work and like you can really feel your spirit, like your spirit will let you know. um and I think that this Venus sextile to Uranus could be like the little nudge that we didn't really realize that we needed. So yeah, I am excited for that. And I think it's a really nice wave of like intentional change to tap into on Sunday. Yeah. So I think that that just about covers it. If this helped you, you're welcome to donate to my Ko-Fi, my Patreon. They're listed below. If you would like a reading, I'll link that below as well. I'll come back to talk about the solar eclipse in Gemini and, um, you know, maybe break it down sign by sign. Let me know how your week goes, how you're doing, and thank you so much for watching this. Take care. Bye.